All right, Tom, I have 12 NBA questions for you today. How are you?
I'm good. We got a dozen. Wow, I am so excited for this.
All right, Tom, on Wednesday night, we saw the Rockets win again. They continue to roll. They're just rolling this season offensively. They still have the number one offensive rating. On Monday's episode, I talked with S. Barry Heaney about how, is this offense for real? Because they continue to have the number one offensive rating despite being 30th in three-point attempts per game this year. They're first in three-point percentage, though. First in offensive rebounding rate. They're just this weird team. And yet here they are, one of the best teams in the league. I'm curious because in your tiers, we talked a week ago about how, hey, OKC and Denver on a level of their own. Houston faces Denver on Friday. If the Rockets win that game, Tom, do they move into tier one of contenders? They keep beating everybody.
I'm still got OKC and everyone else. I'm not going to waver on that. We established that last week, and I can't move off of that yet, even though if they beat Denver soundly, that would be a great win. I'm mesmerized by this Rockets team. Just like you, I'm like, it's like a riddle. Like, imagine like you're Ime Udoka and you're presenting your vision on the Rockets this season. And you're like, okay, you get in the meeting with CEO, GM, and you sit them all down. You go, all right, here's my idea for this team. Okay. Let's go out and build our offense around a 37-year-old. Okay. Let's go get that. Okay. let's not take threes. Let's rank last in 3-pointers. Okay. I know everyone's trying to take threes. It's the 3-ball era. Just hear me out. Okay. We're going to live in the post-ups. We're going to have the second highest post-up frequency in the NBA. Okay. We're also going to take a ton of mid-range shots. All right. We're not going to pass the ball. I mean, we're going to rank 30th in assist rate. Okay. We're going to do post-ups, no threes, and live in the mid-range. And we're going to have the lowest assist rate in the league. And oh, by the way, we're going to revolve around a 37-year-old. You guys ready? You guys ready to sign up? You guys in? This team is number one offensive rating, and they have all the markings of like a retro 90s team. So the retro Rockets are now flipping the entire script of what it means to have a modern offense, a good offense, when they're playing like they're stuck in the 90s. And it's fascinating. Like I don't know what to make of it because you take away Fred VanVleet and they still have the best offense by running a bunch of old school throwback strategies.
It's beautiful to watch, Tom. I mean, first of all, everything you described on paper, it's like, that's not going to work. But then you see it and it's like, wow, wait a minute. They actually do have the number one offensive rating and they feel like they have a very diverse half-court offense. Sometimes they're playing through Alperen Şengün. Sometimes Amen Thompson is running pick and roll. Sometimes he's in the dunker spot. Sometimes it's KD just playing off ball coming off a screen. Sometimes he's running pick and roll. Sometimes Reed Shepherd's out there adding a new dynamic as a guy hitting nearly 50% of his threes, leads the team in 3-point attempts per game. Our guy. I mean, like, it's just such a funky team. And you look around the NBA at all these different styles, Houston stands out as this oddball among a bunch of oddballs. And I think even if they beat Denver on Friday, it's totally fair to keep them in tier 2 below Denver and OKC. But it's very possible that they also are on a level of everybody above everybody else. It's very possible. That's the case, considering what they are defensively, considering their lineup flexibility, considering what their offense has become this year. I've said it on the pod multiple times before. Their best offense last year was Adams and Şengün crashing the offensive boards. That is still one of their best half-court offense attacks, but they still have a bunch of other ways now to beat you. And this team just continues to check boxes. Şengün continues to look like one of the best bigs in basketball. Yep. As well. The dude added a 3-pointer. He continues to flourish defensively. He completely outplayed Evan Mobley in that game. I mean, Evan Mobley got some top 10, top 15 hype before the season. Şengün is a better player than Evan Mobley. It is not even a question. It is not even a debate at this point. This guy has made a dramatic leap. He's on an all-NBA pace. He is a clear-cut all-star, a no-doubt all-star. This guy is a rising star, and the team is built around KD, but it's also built around Şengün as well, Tom.
He's so skilled. He's so tough. And how many times is he going to run the offense in crunch time and get to the cup at will? He starts out at a half court. He's done it so many times this season where they're throwing multiple defenders and he finds a way to get to the rim and get an open look. He's so skilled. And that's I loved it when I went on Lebitard's show right before the draft, and I was like, I mean, the number one pick should be this dude, this 18-year-old from Turkey, Alperen Şengün. And they're like, who? What are you talking about? Because the numbers that he put up, and then you watch the film, and you're like, this guy is baby Jokic. Like, he's so skilled, crafty, his finishing, his passing, he's got eyes on the back of his head. The way that he sees the game is Jokic-like. And it's funny. Who else doesn't take threes in their offense and builds in a very kind of throwback way historically? It's the Denver Nuggets around Jokic. And you can see that, like, even the fabric of this team is very Jokic and Denver-like, where they're just going to build around a Jokic-like player in Alperen Şengün, who's going to be just this hub of the offense that in a pinch, you can just throw him the ball and he's going to get you a bucket. And, you got a crazy cutter in Amen Thompson in the same way that Christian Brown, in the same way Michael Porter Jr. last year and Aaron Gordon, they can cut off the ball and finish high above the rim. And now they've got, Kevin Durant, who's the most go-to bucket 7-footer we've ever seen pick up a basketball. And so there's so many different looks that this team can give you. And then here's like baby Steph Curry coming off the bench and is just knocking down threes every single night. This team is, I don't know if they snuck up on us, but I don't think we expected the offense to just be this dynamite. They haven't scored less than 110 points in any game this season, and getting 130 doesn't even blink at it. Don't even blink an eye. They get 130, 139 points, and that's without Fred VanVleet.
Hey, it's worked out for the best. I mean, before the season, we talked about could it end up being a blessing in disguise to lose VanVleet, getting opportunity for Amen Thompson, getting opportunity for Reed Shepherd in the absence of Fred VanVleet. I would say the answer to that so far is a clear yes, it is, and it's happening earlier than expected. Let's move on to question number 2. Which team should trade for Anthony Davis? Because Tim McMahon over at ESPN reported the Mavs are willing to listen to offers for Anthony Davis. Mark Cuban came out with a statement to The Athletic. We won't. We want to try to win. Mark Cuban, how much does he own to the Mavericks? Does he have any say? Does he have any power? It's kind of strange. Mark Cuban is coming out with a statement.
Reportedly.
27%. So yeah. I guess he has some sway and all that, but they're gonna trade, or at least listen to offers for AD. I have no doubts about that, Tom. But the question is who should go for him? A week ago, I proposed to you the Pistons or the Hawks as some fake trade ideas. Do you have any in mind for AD?
Yeah, I think it's got to go Eastern Conference here. Just get him out of the Western Conference that is a murderer's row there. So I would, if I'm an Eastern Conference team looking to make a leap right now and get a defensive anchor who would want to be in your city. And so maybe this is a situation where he's not going to be upset when he gets there and try to force his way out with Clutch representing him. We know that typically when you see a guy trying to sign up with Clutch, the reputation, the perception is I want to find a way to get out of this situation. And they've done a good job of getting me where I want to go. I'm coming home. Chicago.
Ooh.
Coming home back to Chicago. This team right now is in the running for a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. They have an expiring contract in Nikola Vucevic, who, by the way, wrecked the Blazers on Wednesday night. When I was on that game, dude was getting every shot he wanted and hit the game winner there at the last second, the buzzer beater. So it pains me to say this as we're talking about AD trades, but the Mavericks have to get off of Anthony Davis's long-term money, Kyrie Irving's long-term money. Vooch is an expiring deal. You also put in Trey Jones as a point guard. December 15th, you need to be able to wait until December 15th to consummate a trade with Trey Jones because of trade restrictions. And then also Chicago Bulls, they get off the Patrick Williams contract. So Anthony Davis, Patrick Williams, Trey Jones, and a lightly protected first-round pick going to the Mavs. Mavs do it because they get a point guard, they get cap relief, and they get a first-round pick. Obviously, in retrospect, trading Luka Doncic, bad idea for the trade package they got. But when you get a guy like Anthony Davis who might be injured, I don't know what the package looks like, but there's a lot of East teams that could use an Anthony Davis to anchor them defensively and give them a two-way guy. and Chicago already has the offense figured out with Billy Donovan. I wonder if they bring on Anthony Davis, 2.5 years younger than Vucevic, and bring him on home and see what happens.
Well, the Bulls are my team as well, Tom. I was in my article last week. I had a trade with Vooch, similar thought process as you, but I'm trying to figure out a way to keep Vooch. He's just been so good. He just had the game winner on Wednesday against your Portland Trail Blazers. He's looked good this year. So I have a trade to put together without Vooch involved here. So Patrick Williams, Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter. I can't even say it without laughing. It's an inside joke. Saying it like it's Spanish. Huerter.
No.
Was someone I was at a lunch the other day, and someone pronounced his name that way, like thinking that's how it was pronounced.
Huerter?
Yeah.
What? And now it's stuck in your brain. It's a word.
It's hurt.
It's a wormhole.
It's Herter. It's Herter.
Forget
we all looked at each other like, huh? More on that meal later in the show. But Patrick Williams, Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, and future first for Anthony Davis. That gets it done financially. So instead of Vooch, you get AD. He can play the 4. You don't have to say you're the 5. He can play the 4 in that situation. And maybe giving up Patrick Williams or Huerter instead would better appease the Mavericks side of things in that deal as well, because I don't know if they'd want Vooch.
I would want Vooch if you're trying to get off the money, if you're trying to just start from scratch, blank slate, and he's got an expiring deal, I think at like 30, what is it, 35, something like that. I'd have to look that up, but I think Vooch, he's been awesome for the Bulls, and who would have thought that like in an AD trade, you'd be like, you know what, I don't want to get rid of that Vucevic who's 35 years old. If you're the Chicago Bulls, it seems like a very Chicago Bulls thing to just like stay with mediocrity rather than going for an all NBA type talent. But Vucevic did awesome. I mean, inside out, he was sensational in Wednesday night's game. The way he played Donovan Clingan to the point where Donovan Clingan was looking at the bench, the Portland bench, and being like, we can't keep doing drop coverage on this guy because he's parking out by the 3-point line or just getting that little Isaiah Hartenstein push shot, and he's able to just find these little pockets. He's a tough cover. But if you're Chicago and you're good with just like being the 8th seed every year, then yeah, I think a Vooch, a 35-year-old Vooch, is someone you hang on to. But if you want to shoot for something a little bit higher, and I know high risk, high reward with Anthony Davis, we all know that. But there are not too many landing spots that I could see with the injury risks with Anthony Davis. But Chicago might have that risk tolerance, it coming in, bringing him home like they did with D-Wade.
All right, number 3, sticking with the Chicago Bulls. How does Coby White change the Bulls? We saw last night he made the game-winning assist to Nikola Vucevic, driving to the rim, this beautiful kick out to Vooch for the game-winning three-pointer at the buzzer. And he's been good in both games, 27 points, 8 assists in his debut this season against the Jazz, and 25 points, 7 assists against the Blazers. What do you think, Tom? How does he change the complexion of the Chicago Bulls?
The actions he's doing on these highlights, I watched it, the pick and roll actions that he was doing against the Blazers, he was so good. Like, watch this play right here. He's getting into the teeth of the defense and D-cells on a dime, and Tamani Kamara flies over him. Sometimes KOC, you see these D-cells, which has become a very common thing, a very trendy thing for driving guards to do. And there isn't actually a thought process behind it. It's almost like you're flexing something or trying to show that you can do this without actually having it be effective. That was very much effective, where he knows that Tamani Kamara is behind him and he D-cells, he sails right by, and then he's got an open layup at the rim. His ability to pass out of the pick and roll has been really strong, where he's not just a super sub. This is a guy that I think you can run a lot of offense through because he's a 3-level scorer. He's a guy who's getting and ones, and at the last second, man, transition 3, down 4 right here with a 30-foot just a prayer. But when it's him, he's catching the ball, looking behind him, and he's already setting his feet. So when he catches it, he's already going up with his shooting motion. A really skilled player, changes a lot of stuff for the Chicago Bulls. because there's just not a lot of guys who can get those kind of points in a hurry, like Coby White. And for Josh Giddey, who's a very different player, and Coby White, this is a really powerful backcourt, and a reason why I put Trey Jones into this trade, because now you got Coby White back. I don't think you need 3 point guards out there or guys who can create. I love Coby White's game and what he did to the Blazers in the, I think the Blazers had a 98% chance of winning that game right before that Coby White 3. And so for him to find that open pocket in transition, Chris Murray was trying desperately to get to him because they know he's a guy who has logo 3 range. And it was pure, man. He was great.
He's only 25 years old, and it feels like he after stagnating for a little bit to start his career with Chicago, he's just gotten better every single year incrementally. And it's only 2 games, and he's come off the bench in both games. But I don't know, man. He just looks like the total package to me. And again, like, it's just 2 games, but he's going against some dogs on that Blazers defense, Tom, and he's still creating buckets and creating space and creating quality opportunities for himself and others. And he's scoring through, I mean, that D-cell layup that he had, it was his first bucket of the game that you had highlighted. I mean, he's scoring when it's tough too. It's not like just open shots. The dude just feels like he continuously gets better, and it's exactly what the Bulls were missing in their half-court offense. I think he's the perfect ingredient to add. And after a hot start for the Bulls, they got cold. It wouldn't surprise me if they get hot again. I could see that coming. There's a lot of just good players on this Bulls team, and I do think they are indeed better than people anticipated. Toronto, Chicago, some of these teams in the Eastern Conference are better than expected, and the Bulls are on that list, Tom. I mean, I think they should be buyers. I mean, like, we talk about AD, but whether it's AD or somebody else, I think the Bulls are in a position here where they should be buyers.
Can I tell you a crazy stat that the broadcast, we get these notes from Sport Radar, and I looked at this note and I was like, no, that can't be right. That's not a real stat. They have scored at least 110 points in 46 consecutive games.
Wow.
It's the second longest streak in NBA history. 110 plus in 46, basically a half a season. They haven't had a bad night.
What is it, like the Warriors?
It was like,
or something like that?
in the 70s. It was like in the 60s, where it was just like, the crazy pace back then.
Wow.
They have in the modern era the longest streak of scoring 110 plus. And I was like, whoa. Billy Donovan doesn't get enough credit for being an offensive genius with this team. That they don't have all-stars, go-to guys really on this team. And like I'm talking like Josh Giddey, Zach LaVine last year. They're like fringe all-stars. But you wouldn't say that they're as consistently great offensively as the Golden State Warriors were with KD and Steph. That's what we're talking here, is that Chicago, time and time again, they're going to make you defend at a high level. And they come at you in waves. They come at you in transition. And they just don't stop. So can they get that defensive upgrade? An anchor in the paint, someone who's dynamic. And at his peak, Anthony Davis would be a perfect fit. Whether they think it's worth putting in first-round picks to go get him right now is an open question. We'll see.
On the other side of that, Portland lost that game. They had multiple guys out. But one of the guys who hasn't played yet this season is Scoot Henderson. I'm wondering, Tom, as I watch this Blazers team, where does Scoot Henderson fit in on the Blazers?
Oh, they need him right now, but obviously the body is going to tell that timetable when he's ready. But last night after Tiago Splitter watched that loss where they just gave up a 4-point lead with 15 seconds left, there's a question to him about what this team needs to, kind of right the ship. And he said to the effect, a point guard. There's 4 point guards on the roster right now, and all of them are hurt. And so Scoot Henderson would be a huge addition to this team because Denny Avdia is running point for 90% of this game. And so Denny Avdia, yes, absolutely can do this for a few games as being the lead big guard a la Luka Doncic, a Josh Giddey type. But to ask him to do this for 82 games, they need the help. And so Drew Holiday being out with a calf injury that seems to be the scourge across the league, this calf injury, it has been really tough for the Blazers to get that kind of offense. And Blake Wesley was so good. I can't overstate how much of an impact Blake Wesley had on the Blazers' identity. He was such a dog defensively, so fast in the open court. And since he got injured, the Blazers' fast break points and their steal numbers went from top 5 in the league, top 3 in the league, to bottom 5 in the league with Blake Wesley getting injured. And I'm not saying that Blake Wesley is the entire identity of the team, but they need a point guard in the worst way right now. And Denny Avdia and Jeremy Grant are doing an admirable job, and Shaedon Sharpe too. But it's tough to play in the NBA without a point guard, and that's what Scoot Henderson would bring.
I hope Scoot comes back very soon because like the window is open right now for him to carve out a role and get real opportunity. Right. I think when the team's fully healthy with Drew Holiday and Shaedon Sharpe and all those guys, there's less touches for him. But right now, I hope it's soon. I hope it's soon for Scoot because I'm still really rooting for that dude. Question number 5, Tom. In the Eastern Conference, there are 3 8-7 teams: the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Magic. How would you rank their odds of making a finals appearance?
Oh, it's the Magic for me. When you look at their Desmond Bane acquisition, it's taken a little bit to figure things out, but I'm still bullish on them. The Giannis Antetokounmpo injury, the groin issue, is really concerning for me. If you could guarantee that he's healthy for this stretch run, Kev, in your hypothetical here, I would pick the Milwaukee Bucks because Giannis is that great. Paolo Banchero's been hurt. Franz Wagner and Desmond Bane and the rest of that squad are trying to make this work without Paolo Banchero. And I just feel like they've got a lot more weapons than the Milwaukee Bucks do. Ryan Rollins has been fantastic. Most improved player of the year candidate for the Milwaukee Bucks. But without Giannis, I just think that it's the Orlando Magic for me. What say you?
Yeah, I think the Magic are the safe answer right now, considering Giannis is currently out with a groin injury, and those are always concerning. It can linger, it can go away, and then come back, and that's scary for the Bucks. And I'll tell you what, Tom, like I was looking at Tankathon this morning. I always like looking every morning and clicking the simulate lottery button. It's just something I like to do. I'm a draft geek, and I see the Bucks with the 12th best odds. I'm like, is it actually in their best interest to have a lottery pick? I mean, in Giannis's best interest too. Maybe you move into the top 4 and you keep that pick and have a young guy to grow with Giannis, or maybe you trade that pick and you get a star to pair with Giannis. I don't know. The thought crossed my mind really for the first time all season in regards to the Bucks, and I hadn't thought about that. I've been continuously thinking about them as like they're going to get in the playoffs. They're going to be good. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be better than people expect. The Magic have turned things around a little bit. They're still up and down so far. I asked the question in part because I can't quit the Celtics, Tom. They're better than people expect. They're listing Jason Tatum every single day on the injury report, out tonight, Achilles recovery. Someday, like it's very possible in late February or March, there's a day where it's like Jason Tatum, questionable. And I just look at this team, and Nehemias Queta has been way better than a lot of people expected. The Celtics have been like a really great team when he's been on the floor. When he's off the floor, they have not been so great, but he's been the center that has stood out for that team. Brown's having a good year. Derik White, Peyton Pritchard, all these guys that are getting increased opportunity without Tatum. It's been up and down, but the highs are high with this team. And I just feel like the roster is simply missing Jason Tatum and one more big. And I can't help but I just think I look at the finals odds when you look at like BetMGM, and it's like the Clippers are more favorites than the Celtics. I just think that's absurd. I think it's crazy to me. And to rank them, I think the very, very safe thing to do would be Magic, Bucks, Celtics. If Giannis is healthy, Bucks, Magic, Celtics. But I would not rule out the Celtics in this equation, Tom. I just would not. I wouldn't. They're better than people expected. Look at the Pacers without Halliburton. They stink, and they're probably also tanking as well. The Celtics, they're missing Tatum, and they don't stink. They've been pretty solid so far this year. Can't quit them. Can't quit them.
Here's the crazy stat I found yesterday when we were prepping for the big number. I was noticing that Denver has the fewest games lost due to injury in the NBA, like 6 games. Number 1 is the Indiana Pacers. Number 2 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Wow. And I'm like, one team is 1-14 and the other is 14-1. And it's not like, I know Tyrese Halliburton is the engine of that team. And it's not like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's missing for the Thunder, but they're missing an all-NBA, all-defensive member in Jalen Williams this entire season. And they missed a handful of guys, and yet they're blowing the doors off of everybody. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has played 6 fourth quarters without Jalen Williams because they're just blowing the doors off of everybody. And so it is kind of crazy and I don't know if we're talking about the injury stuff this year, but like the Indiana Pacers have the most games lost due to injury, and the Oklahoma City Thunder have the second most. What do those two teams have in common? They went all the way to the NBA Finals last year, and I just think that like what the Boston Celtics have been able to do without Jason Tatum, what the Oklahoma City Thunder have done without Jalen Williams, getting 0 games from him so far, it's impressive. And that's why Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is my MVP so far this season. Is just I think we can't overstate how crazy it is that both Indiana and Oklahoma City lost one of their two best players, and they're diametrically opposite on the standings.
All right, let's talk about the injuries, Tom, because you wrote about it this week on Yahoo Sports. You talked about it on the Big Number as well. The amount of stars and players that are sidelined so far this season. So question number 6 on today's pod I have for you is, what are some proposed solutions to the NBA's injury problem?
You got to get rid of the back-to-back. PR-wise, get rid of the back-to-back. So get down the number of games, at least enough to get rid of the back-to-back, because you're looking at this Steph Curry rest day that we had in Miami this week, and Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler. And you say to yourself, if you're a Miami Heat fan and you only get the opportunity to get this crew in your town once out of the NBA calendar, it can't come on a second night of a back-to-back. The Golden State Warriors have had 5 back-to-back sets already this season. And I don't blame them for giving these guys the night off on the second night of a back-to-back in Miami. When you look at the larger picture, the NBA has to figure out a way not just to relieve the schedule of the injury risk as much as you can. It's not going to be perfect. I think we should not say that perfection should be the goal here. Perfection is the enemy of progress. And the idea that if you cut the schedule down, that there's still going to be injuries, duh. Like, we know this. We know that the game is so fast and so much violence on the joints and the muscles and your body that we can't expect any sort of measure to cut games from the schedule to be a perfect solution, that we wouldn't see DNP rest nights. We wouldn't see guys having injury management days to take off. But I really think the first step has to be everyone coming together and realizing, hey, if we don't figure this out, we are going to have a post-LeBron, KD, and Steph era that is going to look like the Great Depression of the NBA, because these guys are not built to play at this kind of pace with this much mileage coming into the NBA. The answer is not doing the same thing. The status quo can't be the same. So start with getting rid of back-to-backs, eliminating enough games from the schedule to get every game having a day off before going in and a day off going out. And I think that solves a lot of the problems, but doesn't fix everything, Kev. And I think that is what I think we need to leave the conversation, is the idea that whatever proposal we're going to do is going to get rid of injuries and get rid of DNP rest days. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, whatever we do, there's still going to be rest days, to your point, but that is a start. Drew Hanlon, NBA trainer who's appeared on my podcast before, put on Threads something that I thought was interesting. He said team miles per game. So this last season, 18.3 miles were run per game in an average NBA game. In 2013-14, the first year with tracking data, it was 16.8. So that's 1.5 more miles per game, as Drew wrote on Threads, which is the equivalent of an extra 120 miles for the full season. And so he writes, combined with the increased pace of play, athletes being bigger, faster, stronger, more skilled, that's putting an increased load on their bodies as youth players with travel ball, as NBA players, as professionals. And he says it's too much. And that's why we're seeing so many injuries. And as he said, like you did, Tom, get rid of back-to-backs. Ideally, they'd shorten the season too. I think back-to-backs is the first thing they have to 100% get rid of. That is first certain. They have to get rid of back-to-backs. But I do think shortening the season is something the NBA needs to strongly consider. I know there's a lot of people that say, well, players aren't going to take a pay cut. Are you sure it'll actually be a pay cut if there's fewer games, and therefore, like the NFL and like leagues that don't have 82 games, each game will have more meaning? Are you sure that it won't be structured in a way where you make the season have more stakes, and therefore players end up making more money because there's more interest in watching games and going to games and buying merchandise. I think the 82 game regular season feels antiquated at this point. I know it's part of the tradition and it would ruin stats and all that, but the NBA is in competition, Tom, with everything. It's in competition with the NFL. It's in competition with the MLB. It's in competition with Netflix. It's in competition with Apple TV. Entertainment and content is all on the same playing field, and the NBA needs to compete for that attention. And to me, 82 games is hurting the league at this point. And I think they really need to have a serious conversation with their broadcast partners and with the PA about cutting down the games, not just for the health of the players, but the quality of the product in order to grow the game moving forward. And whether they expand or whether there's teams that are moving as they want to build out this European league, Tom, and they're inevitably going to expand the NBA Cup, there will be an opportunity for them to overhaul the schedule. And they have to do it in a way that both increases interest in the league, improves the quality, but also improves the durability of your star players. There's an opportunity here in the coming years for the NBA to do that.
Yeah, they just signed this TV deal, which is it was the opportunity. It was right there.
I know.
It was right there to really reevaluate the entire system. And Eric Spoelstra talked about this actually on Wednesday at his press conference. It was asked to him about the injury rates in the league and what Steve Kerr had said. And by the way, Steve Kerr told me all this stuff in May last year when I was writing this article about how all the postseason injuries, the Achilles tears, the ACL issues, and the soft tissue injuries, how we had a huge problem in the league that teams just can't survive the playoffs like they used to. And injury rates were skyrocketing in the postseason. And yet you had the Gen Z teams, the young teams who were playing fast and playing at a level that the older teams, the star-laden teams just couldn't keep up. And he was like, man, it's just the game right now. The game is too violent in terms of the exertion, right? The geometry of the game. It's something Drew Hanlon was talking about there is the mileage that these guys are playing per game. I would venture to say that if we're playing 18 miles per game, running 18 miles per game now, in the 90s, it was probably like 12. I think there's been like a 50% increase in the amount of area covered by these players. And that's why when people are like, oh, in the Jordan era, they played 82 games, no problem. If you added 50% more action in a game in the 90s, you would see injuries too. It's a lot easier to play 82 games when bigs don't have to cover the perimeter, when they're not having to guard Alperen Sengun at the half. Like, I'm watching Alperen Sengun and what he's doing, and I'm like, imagine like Patrick Ewing or bigs like Mark Eaton trying to guard Alperen Sengun or Derik Queen or any of these, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, the game is so much bigger now. The geometry of the game is such that these bigs are having to cover out to half court in pick and roll coverages and 3-pointers that they have to defend. So I just think that we've got our heads in the sand, and I'm complicit in this too, is that I love 3-pointers. I love the way it spaces the floor. I love that it creates more downhill opportunities and athletic plays at the rim. But at some point, there's only a finite amount of carnage that these bodies can take. And we're seeing it now that long-term, this is not going to be good for the league if these stars can't stay on the floor and the fans start being like, I'm not even going to pay attention to the national TV game because, like, I wanted to watch Wemby and Ja Morant, and Wemby's hurt, Ja Morant's hurt, and so is Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper. And that's what the NBC debut for Wemby was like on Tuesday night.
And the NBA flexed in that game, Tom. They flexed it in because it originally seemed like a good idea, and it turned out to be a very bad idea. And I'm sure this is going to be a topic throughout the season as well. It's not going away, but we shall see. Hopefully some of these guys can return and stay healthy. But as you said, Tom, I don't think with the nature of today's game, it's going to change anytime soon. Let's move to question number 7 with a guy who is out with knee soreness. That's Jonathan Kuminga. He's been out since November 12th. Kerr had talked about how the frequency of the games the Warriors have played may have played a factor in that as well for a younger guy like Kuminga. I'm curious, What's your updated assessment of this Kuminga situation? Because Anthony Slater wrote an article this morning called "The Inside the Warriors' Quest to Solve the Jonathan Kuminga Puzzle." It's year 5, Tom. It's year 5, and we're still trying to find the pieces to make the puzzle even happen. What do you think about the Kuminga situation at this point?
Yeah, just get the trade done with the Sacramento Kings and get it over with. Just get it over with. We all know it's coming. Just get it over with. And I know there's trade restrictions and we got to wait until, a later date in order for that to be consummated. But you're looking in this article, Anthony Slater, it's very rare that we get reporting like this in the NBA. Shouts to Anthony Slater, who's done as good of a job on the beat on any team in the NBA over the last, half decade that he's been covering the Warriors in the league. The quotes that he got from Jimmy Butler were so fascinating because it's very clear that Jonathan Kuminga is playing mentor to Jimmy Butler. Like, it's very clear that he looks up to Jimmy Butler in a lot of ways and trying to get guidance on how to navigate this very tricky power struggle that he's having with the Golden State Warriors, the front office, the coaching staff, trying to figure out how to do this. And he has sought the guidance of the number one provocateur is the word I was going for. The number one provocateur in the NBA. Kev, if I'm the Warriors, I'm like, okay, I know we brought in Jimmy Butler to settle this situation here and try to win a championship, but did we just bring our greatest enemy into the fold by having him mentor Jonathan Kuminga about how to find your way out of a situation to get the best for your situation?
I thought that was so funny.
Hey, the best part who are you talking to on the team? Talking to Jimmy Butler, who blew up multiple situations to force
everywhere
his way
he's ever been. Everywhere he's been. I thought it was great. But I mean, the article had a bunch of quotes by Draymond and Kerr about how hard Kuminga is working and all that. Butler, towards the end of the story, it kind of closes with him, alluding to how things ended with Miami about not being wanted there. And he says he always relays to Kuminga. This is the quote that Anthony Slater closed the article with, and the one that stuck out to me the most. He said, "We are all in your corner. Just breathe. Breathe. We're not out to get you. I don't think anybody's out to get you. Fans or media, maybe, but the people in it, we are not out to get you, bro. I promise you. I promise." Tom, I mean this respectfully. I think Jimmy Butler's lying through his teeth. I think all the veterans on that team know Jonathan Kuminga is going to be traded at some point. I think they had word the whole summer about this whole fiasco, this whole situation this offseason about, hey, we're trying to bring him back so we can eventually move him. That's what I think. I think the team knows. So I see this quote and I'm like, okay. Sure, maybe it's honest, yeah. But I don't totally buy it. And in part because of the reporting this summer about how Warriors players were wondering what's going on. Why have we not signed anybody? They know what's going on. They know Kuminga's not going to be here for long. They know that he's not the best fit for this roster. They're not stupid. So of course they're going to support him and they wish for the best for their teammate, the guy that they travel with, they're in the locker room with. But I think it's best for Kuminga, best for the veterans, best for the Warriors' future that Kuminga be flipped elsewhere. That's just the reality of the situation. That's become more and more obvious this whole year.
Yeah. One thing I think about is, the trade offers that they got this summer for Kuminga, and they weren't willing to sign off on those because they didn't think they got fair value for what they believe Jonathan Kuminga's worth. And there is risk in holding on to Kuminga. It's that he suffers a knee injury, and suddenly it's the worst of both worlds. Is Kuminga's hurt, and also you're not able to get another team to trade because they're a little worried about his health going forward. So now he's got this knee issue and the soreness with his knee. And for an explosive athlete that Anthony Slater laid out pretty clearly in this article, it has sapped a lot of the athleticism that makes Jonathan Kuminga so alluring for teams like Sacramento and Phoenix. And so if he has an injury, unfortunately, that's going to sap a lot of the energy around that trade call. And so I think that is the risk. If you're the Golden State Warriors, why do you take 70 cents on the dollar for Jonathan Kuminga on this trade offer from Sacramento or Phoenix? Well, it's because maybe in a couple months, that 70 cents on the dollar becomes 50 cents on the dollar. And so that's what I worry about with some of these teams that hold on to these trade packages in today's NBA, time is of the essence. And a lot of the injury stuff that we talk about is you're running the risk that some of these guys might get injured, and then suddenly you're looking like, oh man, we should have made that deal earlier when it was in the offseason and we weren't dealing with a lot of the knee soreness that you have with Jonathan Kuminga. So it's a rough situation all around. I think about Walker Kessler and how unfortunate that injury is. And it's just sometimes the NBA season, it hits, these injury issues hit, and it's just a really sad outcome for guys like Jonathan Kuminga who are feel like they don't have a way out of this situation. And their only way out is seeking the guidance and the counsel of Jimmy Butler, which
hey, pretty good guy to learn from. Butler knows how to get out of situations. He's the best at it. Elite, all-timer. So good for him to have him as a mentor to figure out how to get out of situations. Thing is, though, Tom, is Jimmy Butler was a great player. Jonathan Kuminga has not reached that level yet. So Butler always had a little bit of leverage on his side that Kuminga does not, which is why he's an expiring salary, Tom. That's what he is. There's a team option on his deal for next season. And so the Warriors, it might end up a situation that if his value diminishes in the eyes of those teams who see him as a potential piece, he still serves as a potential expiring deal as a filler in another type of deal for the Warriors. And that's where maybe this ends up going, depending on where he lands. Let's move on to question number 8 with a guy that I do think the Warriors should actually consider. We can talk about that fit if you want to, but specifically, are the Nets featuring Michael Porter Jr. for a trade so far this season? Because I'll tell you what, watching the Nets so far this year, Tom, 24 isolations this season so far from Michael Porter Jr. We've seen him do a lot of the same things he's done in the past, right? Cutting to the rim, coming off of screens and whatnot. All these things he did for years in Denver. But 24 isolations in 13 games so far this season exceeds the 23 ISOs he had last year in 77 games. Already has more isolations. He's run 2 pick and rolls per game to 1 per game last year. So that's doubled. He's running 1 post up per game this year with the Nets to 1 post up every 5 games last year with the Nuggets, averaging 24.2 points per game. That's a career high. 18 field goal attempts per game. That's a career high. 3.2 assists per game. That's a career high. And MPJ, just a slight dip in efficiency. He's looked great at everything he's doing, getting this opportunity on a bad Nets team. It feels to me, Tom, that the Nets are featuring this guy to try to raise his value to flip him again. I think it's like a pretty clear yes here with what's happening with MPJ. They're also telling him to hush on podcasts because they don't want him to lower his value off the court. So good luck there.
I love
but on
that.
the court, he's doing his job to raise his value. He's doing his job.
Welcome to Brooklyn. We are going to unplug your microphone. That's exactly what Sean Marks
It's not
did.
working. It is not working.
It's
not working.
He's fighting these plugs. Kev, I got a hot take on this. I feel like 95% of the stars or the NBA players who have a supporting role to like a guy like Nikola Jokic, I think they dream of what Michael Porter Jr. has right now. I think they say it publicly. I just want to win games. I just want to be part of a championship contender. It's all I care about. But I think secretly, most players are just wired this way, that they think they're the alpha. They think they're the guy. And if they just got the opportunity, I don't care if it's a 1-14 team, but if they just got the opportunity to be the guy who's running pick and rolls and ISOing, taking guys off the dribble, that they would be believed by their coaches that they can do this. And I think people secretly look at Michael Porter Jr. like, man, I wish I had that. Like, cause this is the dream, right? You get to show off all these skills that you weren't able to do because you played next to a Mount Rushmore player in Nikola Jokic. So now, and by the way, Jokic is always on the floor, so it's not like you get like 2 weeks to spotlight as the number one option. And so Michael Porter Jr., I think secretly he would say, this has been great for me. I'm loving this right now because it's reinvigorated probably his belief and his love for the game, that he's able to show the full repertoire of his skills in ways that in other winning situations he doesn't. Like, I think about this a lot with guys like Scottie Pippen with Michael Jordan is like, I think a lot of these dudes, they feel like they can be the Batman instead of Robin. And Michael Porter Jr. is showing, hey, I could be this dude averaging 25 a night and being an ISO pick and roll distributor. Kev, got to imagine a lot of players are looking at this situation with envy, right?
I would imagine so. I mean, it's an opportunity to be the guy. And the thing is, though, is how much can you stomach losing? It's all on a personal basis. I personally, like, if I put myself in the shoes of a pro athlete, very easy for me to say from my chair here, but I would want to win. I wouldn't want to be the dude who's just getting buckets and winning 2 games. I feel like it would get really, really boring to me. But winning,
but
there's
for
nothing.
For a few weeks though?
Yeah.
For
a few weeks. For a few weeks for sure. But I think that's where that's like the opposite situation is with Kuminga, right? Where like he did win. So it's like you've experienced that. He has yet to be that guy. But I also don't feel like he was part of that team. Like he wasn't part of an integral part of winning the championship in the way that my MPJ was. Granted, he wasn't great in the finals that year, but like MPJ was a key piece of that team. Kuminga was not. The grass isn't always greener, is my point. Yeah. And like with MPJ, he's losing a lot of games. If you're MPJ, I would much rather be in Golden State with a role similar to what I had in Denver, where I still have opportunities to get buckets. And like, to me, like if I'm looking at Warriors trade targets, like Trey Murphy always gets mentioned as a guy. Larry Markkinen probably a bit too pricey financially, but MPJ at $38.3 million this season, Kuminga at 22.5, Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, that more than gets you there. And I mean, that's 3 role players to give up, 3 rotation guys on your team. But to me, like MPJ has all the qualities that the Warriors wish they had from Jonathan Kuminga. MPJ is an elite shot maker off the catch, off the dribble as well. He can be a guy this season. He's proving he can do a little bit off the dribble when necessary if the team needed that from him. He's a willing cutter. He rebounds. Like he does literally everything that they want from Kuminga. And he's an elite shooter, and he's a proven guy in playoff situations. So to me, like MPJ is probably above Trey Murphy for me for Warriors targets, in part because I think it would be a lower price than what the Pelicans would ask for Trey Murphy. So factoring that in, what the return would be. I mean, to me, I'm going for MPJ, and I'm like, okay, this is a team we can rock with. And I feel like we have an opportunity in a series, but I think other teams should be thinking about MPJ as well. The dude fits anywhere, Tom. He can play in any situation. That's just the reality of it. When you can play with Jokic, you can play anywhere, the way I look at it. If you can play with that type of style around a star like him, and you can play in Brooklyn the way you are, you can fit in any team. And that's what he's proven so far this year.
Yeah, I think about him playing next to Steph and Draymond and Jimmy Butler, and just your cuts will be rewarded. Your backdoor cuts to the rim and your movement off the ball to get to an open spot on the floor, they're going to find you. And so I love the fit for Michael Porter Jr., and especially if it's a 1-year rental and see what happens. I think that's of all the Jonathan Kuminga trades, I love that one, is the idea of getting a guy who fits lock and key with this situation in Golden State. And yeah, there's injury risk with Michael Porter Jr. It's always been the case with him with his back issues from his days at Mizzou. But I think that this is a great situation for Michael Porter Jr., not just a feature that he is more than just a cutter shooter that he was with next to Jokic, but he can do a little bit more. And so Golden State, I love that trade. I'm signing off.
All right, number 9 here, Tom. We saw LeBron James make his debut this week. Was LeBron James's pass first, pass second, score third approach a sign of what's to come for him this season after 12 assists to only 7 shot attempts in his debut?
Yeah, I love the power forward LeBron operating in the post, seeing over the defense, and just being the hub. I mean, these passes to DeAndre Ayton, it's like they've been playing together for years. And I love that quote from DeAndre Ayton after the game saying, that's actually the second lob that you threw to me, because back at camp, when I was at your camp, I got one too. But look at this. LeBron, this is what Erik Spoelstra and he met about after the loss to the Dallas Mavericks was you have to learn to love being a four because you're Karl Malone's body and you've got, a Magic Johnson's vision. You put those two things together and you could be the best power forward in the NBA with this back to the basket. And that's what he's doing with, it's certainly in this debut, the season debut, his ability to see over the defense and to be the hub of the offense on the block. It's tough to guard. I love this turn for 41-year-old LeBron James.
Yeah, I think with LeBron, this is absolutely a sign of things to come with him, man. You mentioned the back to the basket, did a lot of it in that first game against the Jazz, and it worked. We know he can do it. And I also love the connectivity between Luka kick-aheads to LeBron, sparking some transition opportunities as well. Those guys they're such bright, elite basketball minds. And I hope we get to see these guys grow together over the course of the year. But I do think we will see LeBron take a backseat as a scorer, especially given Austin Reeves' development as well, in addition to Luka being the guy he is. All right, Tom, let's move on to question number 10 here. Bam Adebayo made his return on Wednesday, continues to excel for the Miami Heat on defense. So far this season, 10 defenders have switched 50 pick and rolls this season. That's when they're getting brought into a screen. When it's Bam Adebayo, the Heat are allowing only 0.69 points per pick and roll this season. That's the best of those 10 guys that have switched on 10 pick and rolls. By comparison, when it's Mobley for the Cavs are allowing 1.1 points per switch. So Bam is number one by far, doing it against Harden, Luka, LaMelo Ball. He's looked excellent so far this season. And so Wemby's out until mid-December. It's very possible he doesn't hit 65 games. Shouldn't Bam Adebayo be one of the leaders in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation?
Every year, and the opening is there for him to take it. I'm watching some of these clips here, and as we were talking about earlier, is like imagining some of the bigs from previous generations trying to guard Luka Doncic and James Harden, LaMelo Ball the way that Bam Adebayo is. Like imagine Rick Smits trying to switch out and guard Luka Doncic and LaMelo Ball. I can't even fathom what it's like to have to guard these guys on switches or out on the perimeter the way that Bam Adebayo and today's NBA big men have to do. And we know that the Miami Heat, with their new offense, that they never bring two to the ball defensively. They want to make sure they have that motion offense that continues to fill as they attack and have pure spacing in the way that we saw with the Memphis Grizzlies last year. And Noah LaRoche's offense now working with the Miami Heat under Erik Spoelstra. This feels like Bam Adebayo's opportunity to show, hey, offensively, if I can just be, a good spacer and ball mover for the Miami offense, and then defensively just really lock in, like there is a great opportunity for him to assert himself in this race because Rudy Gobert is getting there in age, right? There isn't another guy that you can point to in the league, I think, defensively behind Victor Wembanyama. Even last year with Evan Mobley, it was like, I thought it was Amen Thompson's award last year because there wasn't like this another big man that could check off all the boxes that Wemby could. And Bam Adebayo is that guy. He's versatile 1 through 5, the same way that Spo used to call LeBron James. He is truly 1 through 5. Bam Adebayo is. And now that he's healthy, I think it could be his award to lose at this point.
I would agree. He should be near the top, if not at the top. If he's not at the top, it's because he's only played 9 games. But assuming he stays healthy, assuming he hits that 65 games, he's been stellar so far this season, not just defensively, but offensively too. He's banging threes now. He's a full version of himself. He's everything Heat fans have always wanted. And defensively, I do think this could be the year that he actually does end up winning Defensive Player of the Year. Let's move on to question number 11. Kon Knueppel, Tom. The Hornets are losing games, but Kon Knueppel is excellent on the floor. His last 9 games, 22.3 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game, 3.8 assists per game. Looking so dynamic. Can you tell me what's the best Kon Knueppel player comparison you have in mind based off of his play early on this season?
Well, it works with the K as well. It's Klay Thompson.
Doesn't he do more off the dribble than Klay, Tom?
He does. I mean, well, now he does. I think Klay Thompson would agree that if it weren't for the motion offense and the off-ball offense that Steve Kerr had for Stephen Curry, that they'd be able to have a lot more dynamic off the dribble. But if you look at his 2-point assisted rate, like he's on 60% of his twos, he's getting assisted. Kon Knueppel his rookie season, exactly the same as Klay Thompson. And in terms of pure shooter, in terms of the footwork, you see it with Klay Thompson. Is just like, this guy is possibly his ceiling is the next Klay Thompson, is one of the great shooters we've ever seen, but also can do stuff with the ball. He's got, I think, 2 isolations this season, like period. Kon Knueppel, but as a pick and roll guy, both as a ball handler and as the screener, like Charles Lee has put him as a screener in a ton of actions this year in ways that Steve Kerr did like to use, that guard action with Steph Curry. And what do you do when you got Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry in a pick and roll together? But he's big like Klay Thompson. He's got a picture perfect textbook form like Klay Thompson. And I think he's got more potential as an off the ball put it on the deck scorer. His handle is a lot more polished than I think Klay Thompson was coming out of college. But you've heard it before. Kon Knueppel, talking to Draft Express before the draft, he said, I model my game a lot after Klay Thompson, watching a lot of Klay Thompson tape. You can see it in his game. He also said Jimmy Butler was a guy that he watched a lot with his footwork. And you also see that too, is Kon Knueppel.
Did he say that? I think he said that on the Kevin O'Connor show. Not the Draft Express. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. That was my show where he said that. Pretty sure.
On the Kevin O'Connor show, he told Kevin O'Connor directly.
Wait a minute.
This. I looked at the.
Was that a Google summary? Was that?
I could have sworn I saw the Draft Express logo on this quote. You know what? I feel like someone just did. Yeah, I feel like someone might have slapped on a Draft Express logo on this. All right, ready? Here we go. Kevin, I dug up in your archives this amazing quote, Kev, that you had. No one else had this quote. No one else had this quote, Kev. Kon Knueppel said his game was very much, he watched tape of Klay Thompson, and then his footwork was like Jimmy Butler. How's that, Kev? You like that one?
That was great. That was beautifully done, Tom. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding, but I do think that must have been misattributed from something. But yeah.
What do you think, Klay Thompson? Though, like, you think he's better off the dribble than what Klay Thompson was?
When he said that to me earlier this year, like, it made sense. Like he said he loves to play like Klay and he wants to play like Klay. What was the way he described it, and I think like it made sense at the time, and it still makes sense to an extent. But I just think he's better off the dribble than Klay ever was. And I think there's just a better feel as a passer and as a creator. Or maybe I'm like underselling what Klay could have been in a different world. You know, like, to your point, if the offense wasn't the offense with the Warriors, maybe Klay could have done a lot more off the dribble. But I don't know, man. Kon's got such a passing feel out of the pick and roll. I think there's a different level to his game that he could reach. And I look at the Hornets. I don't know the perfect comp, man. I really don't. I really don't have a perfect comp, which is in part why I'm asking, because I'm looking for it, because it's Klay-like with his ability off the catch and off of movement as a shooter. It's Klay-like with his attacking of closeouts, but there's a different layer with the pick and roll feel and the passing feel and the manipulation off drives to the basket when he gets into the paint. There's something else there. It's like Klay. Look, Klay is one of the best players ever. One of the winningest players ever.
I'll throw another one.
Give me another one. Give me another one. Jimmy
Butler
with Klay's shot. Is that what you're going to
say? I heard it straight from the source on Kevin O'Connor's show. Yeah. What about Book? Talk about pure scorers who are big guards who can manage a pick and roll and smooth player of great footwork. Is Devin Booker a ceiling for Kon Knueppel? I know that's aggressive, but we're talking Klay Thompson might not be a high enough ceiling for this guy, or he's a little bit more dynamic. I mean, coming out of Kentucky, I think we all knew that Devin Booker was a pure shooter who might have been able to show a little bit more at the pro level. It took him a couple years. But as a big guard who can just shoot with the best of them and operate as a ball handler and get in the mid-range, great footwork, it sounds a lot like D-Book.
Yeah, I think Booker's a good one. I like that Booker one, Tom. Let's move on to question number 12 here. Derik Queen, 30 points once again on Wednesday night. Your guy, man. Derik Queen, it seems like this is all for real with him, Tom. I know he had some down games prior to this one, but how real is it with Derik Queen, especially him doing this against Jokic? Well, Jokic wasn't on the floor for a lot of that fourth quarter, but with Jokic in the arena, at least.
Oh, he went at Jokic a couple times in that game. He went at Jonas Valanciunas. He went at everybody in the building in that game. I mean, Derik Queen, I got a good look, up close and personal look at him when he did this to the Blazers the other night, and he keeps doing it where there were a couple moves here where I know that he was on the floor, but I was like, that is very Jokic-like, Şengün-like. The passing ability, the vision, the ability to run a pick and roll, and the little craftiness around the rim. Like, he's what I call a craft bruiser. Like, Alperen Şengün and Nikola Jokic are craft bruisers. They're strong, they're big, they're beefy, but they've got this skill set, this craftiness to them, that it's not just about how their footwork is great and their big bodies. It's also they got great touch around the rim. And there are a couple times where I'm like, yo, who is this dude? Who does he think he is? And I will talk blue in the face about how that was just a misappropriation of assets when you trade that the Pelicans traded the Indiana Pacers pick and lose their ability to have the control over their pick this year to move up to go get Derik Queen. But I'm just going to throw some stats at you, Derik Queen, not just the eye test, but the numbers test, okay? There have been 5 players in NBA history as a rookie who averaged 20 points, 12 rebounds, and 5 assists per 100 possessions, okay? And also had touch at the free throw line of 70% shooting at the free throw line. There have been 5 players as rookies who have reached these types of numbers. And keep in mind, these numbers include the rough start that he had for the first 5 or 6 games of the season, Kev, up and down. But his numbers are plus 20 plus points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 70% from the line. 5 players. Larry Bird, Nikola Jokic, Alperen Şengün, Victor Wembanyama, and Derik Queen, Kev.
Wow.
So,
wow.
If he's able to maintain this with all of those bad games, those duds in the beginning of the year, if he's able to maintain this level of passing, shooting touch, rebounding ability, and do it consistently, that is the archetype for Derik Queen, which is, it's scary, Kev.
Tom, that's a crazy stat. That's crazy. That's mind blowing. But yeah, Derik Queen, been great. It's been nice to have a silver lining for the New Orleans Pelicans, as bad as things are for this so far this season. Tom, before we go, I got a question for you. From my time in New York this week, I went this week because, you know, the Champions Classic was being played. There was on Tuesday night, you had Boozer against Darren Peterson, and it was supposed to be a big game. Well, it was a great game, but Darren Peterson didn't play. Talked about what we learned about Cam Boozer with Sam Vecenie on the podcast later. But that morning, I went out for a meal with some friends. We went to Park Avenue Tavern, and I looked at the menu ahead of time, as people often do, and I see on their website, it's a 9 a.m. reservation. I see on their website they have an all-day menu. And I'm not the biggest breakfast guy, so I was very excited to get a burger. They had a chorizo burger on their menu, and I'm like, I haven't had a chorizo burger since I was in Texas. There's a great one I had in Dallas, Texas for. I'm going to go get the chorizo burger. I get there. I'm the first one to arrive. I say, table for 4, please. And he brings over 4 breakfast menus. And I say, oh, could I have the all-day menu, please? And he says, oh, sorry, we don't give the all-day menu until 11 a.m. Tom, shouldn't a restaurant's all-day menu be available during breakfast hours?
It's such a misnomer. Why would you say it's all day if it's not all day? Isn't that the whole point? Hey, yeah, we're open 24 hours, but we're closed for 8 of those hours. Like, what is... Then don't put 24 hours on the front of the building, right?
Yes, exactly. 100%. It's false advertisement. I felt like I got scammed. And so I'm sitting there, it's a couple minutes before the reservation. He comes over again and I say, hey, it's an all-day menu. Why isn't it available right now? He's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just the rules. And I'm like, okay. And he comes back again. People are, 5 minutes running a little bit late now. It's like, hey, is there any way you can ask the chef if I can have the chorizo burger? Because, it's an all-day menu. I came expecting to be able to get that.
Stocked.
Yeah.
It's
I was hoping to get it. Is there any way you can ask the chef? And he says, chef very rarely ever makes exceptions, but I'll ask anyway, just to check for you. I'll check. And he comes back and he says, yeah, we can make you the chorizo burger, but don't tell anybody that at the table because we can only do this one burger. and they brought out the chorizo burger with the fries on the side, and it was excellent. It was exactly everything I had hoped for. It was a great burger. I had a breakfast burger off of the all-day menu. I think Park Avenue Tavern, great restaurant, really good service. Everybody liked their food. The all-day menu has got to be all day, Tom.
And you know what?
Come on.
This is the opposite of what they normally hear is like, hey, I saw it on the menu that you have a beef burger, and I'm just wondering if you could make it like an Impossible burger, like a vegan burger. And the chef's like, I mean, we can't really make an exception here. We don't have that. You are asking for something that's on the all-day menu. Of course they have it in the back. It's not like you're asking the chef to prepare something that he doesn't have in his repertoire. So you did like the thing that I think chefs would want to hear is, hey, you have this awesome thing on your menu, and I know that it says here it's not available for the breakfast menu, but it is all day, and I really, really want it. Can you kind of cook that up for me and serve it up on a platter? That'd be great.
I'd have no issues, Tom, if they called it the lunch menu. If it were the lunch menu, I'd have no issues. But it's the all-day menu. It's got to be available all day. It feels like something
when you get
a
ticket and it's like not it's a refundable ticket, and then you go to refund it and then they're like, oh, we have a couple exceptions here that's actually non-refundable. And I'm like, then don't tell me it's a refundable ticket. If I can't, the no cancellation policy, if it's a no cancellation policy, just tell me. It's one of my biggest pet peeves is when there's like
Ticketmaster, right?
Yeah, it's like there's asterisks.
Oh, that stuff is a scam, Tom. I actually had to miss a show like 3 years ago or something like that because I was like legitimately sick. I couldn't go. And they gave me the hardest time ever to get my money back. I actually put it on for that show. I don't know why I did. It was like 10 extra bucks. I was like, let's do it just in case. And it actually worked out that I had to do it. And they ended up after this multi-week long thing where I had to talk to like a supervisor to get my money back. Like that stuff is such a scam. Those ticket protection programs. It's crazy.
All day with an asterisk. That's what they got to put on the menu.
Yeah. All day. Or just change it to the lunch and dinner menu. That's all on your website. Change it to lunch and dinner and no problems. Until then, though, the breakfast burger, it was a breakfast burger for me. The chorizo burger was excellent, and I would like to go back there sometime. Tom, people can hear you on Pack Your Knives in addition to all the takes. NBA stuff. Yeah, if you want more food takes and all the NBA stuff and sports stuff you do. Tom, thank you so much for joining me today, man.
You got it all day, Kev. I've been a believer on all of your Kon Knueppel coverage. You've been the go-to source on all of it. Just want to let everyone know. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Have a good day.
We better keep that in, Kev. We better keep that in.
We are keeping it in, and up next, get a little bit pushback coming up next from Sam Vecenie. Sam Vecenie joins the show right now to talk NBA draft in our edition of Draft Class. All right, time for Draft Class. Joining me today from Game Theory Podcast, Sam Vecenie. Sam, how are you?
How's it going, man? I have a question here before we get started. So I'm going to put you on you're going to put me on the hot seat for 45 minutes, 10 minutes, however long we go for. I'm not even sure. So who decided to take you for a ride last week in like an NBA front office and tell you that Cooper would not go in the top 5 or 6 or might not go in the top 5 or 6 of this class? I need to know. Like, was it Sean Marks?
First of all, he didn't say not in the top 5 or 6. It was like, well, maybe he'll go fifth or sixth. It wasn't not out of the top six. It was multiple people saying, yeah, I'd have him third. I'd have him maybe fourth. I could see a world and where, somebody talks himself into going outside the top four. It was those conversations. Ultimately, one of the people who was like fifth or sixth said to me, he's like, well, maybe I should have said fourth or fifth. So that person hasn't backed down exactly. I find, for what it's worth, the listeners who didn't read or see the social media reaction over at Yahoo, I wrote an article about the Dallas Mavericks after they fired Nico Harrison. So just giving context to the listeners about how, hey, the Mavs need to blow it up. Nico can't be the end here. The Mavericks need to trade AD, trade Kyrie. This draft class is special. And to give context to that, just from conversations talking to people, where would Cooper go if we never reclassified? I put in there, well, he probably goes third, possibly. That's a possibility. He goes third. Maybe he goes fourth, fifth. One guy who I think is a loony, fifth or sixth. So I put in the article about how some executives around the NBA said if Flagg had never reclassified, he probably would have been the third pick at best, maybe as low as fifth or sixth. And for whatever reason, social went wild over this, thinking it's
they did.
When in reality, it wasn't a knock against Cooper in the eyes of these people. It was more a compliment to the prospects in this year's draft. And in my context of the article saying, hey, this draft is special. That's why Dallas needs to continue trying to make more moves to take advantage of this draft and build with Cooper with another co-star. You must think Cooper would have still been number one or number two even this year.
Which
is fair. A lot of people do think that way.
A lot of these. Yeah, to be clear, I never thought that it was actually your opinion that this was real and that he would go 5 or 6. It's just like I was so confused. I was like, wait, like nobody, because like I talk to a lot of people, much like you do around the league. I was like, I have not heard of anybody that says 5th or 6th. I've heard like 4th. Like I disagree with it, but like I could get to 4th if you really, twisted my arm and threatened my family or something. But like, I think Cooper is very much in the mix with these 3 guys at the top, with AJ Dybantsa, with Darren Peterson, with Cam Boozer. I think Caleb Wilson is doing an amazing job of like making this a much more interesting conversation at the top than what we all thought it would be coming into the season. But yeah, I mean, Cooper has been fantastic to start the year in a catastrophic situation. I mean, if you look at any of the numbers since Dallas has moved to put an actual guard in the lineup, and not even like an NBA starting quality guard, just Brandon Williams, right? Who I think is an NBA quality guard and is going to stick around the league, it feels like, for a minute. But, even if you put somebody like that in the starting lineup, Cooper looks drastically better and looks like what we expected. So, yeah, it's very strange to me that people are discounting what Cooper has done to start the year a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's unfair to Cooper if people are discounting what he's done. To your point, it's a disastrous situation. I mean, Nico Harrison, that situation loomed over the team to start the year. He's playing point guard. He's playing out of position early in his career. It's too much on his plate early on, too much to expect from him as the youngest player in the NBA. And yet he's still playing incredibly well. Even for him, like we saw last year at Duke, it wasn't until he turned 18 in December where he started knocking down 3-pointers with any consistency. And this year, it's very similar. With Dallas, he's shooting below 30% from 3, only 78% from the free throw line. The jumper has really not yet fallen for him. And maybe that has something to do with the shoulder issue he has. And yet, it's positive production from a teenager. I mean, it's pretty amazing what he's capable of doing right now already.
Yeah, totally. And he's 18 years old, being asked to play point guard, which is a position he's never played before. Like, look, you can go back to some of the like Maine United teams or whatever, and he's handling the ball a lot, to be clear. But like, they always had guards out there with him at the end of the day. Duke always had guards out there with him. Sion James was out there with him. Tyrese Proctor was out there with him, certainly. I just found it, I find it very interesting that people are discounting this, and they'll point to the idea of, when Jason Kidd had Giannis, he played him at point, and that's how Giannis developed. Well, Giannis was 21 years old, not 18. He was in his 3rd NBA year, not his 1st NBA year. Those are 2 like really important factors here. Like the game had slowed down a little bit for Giannis, and then they decided to actually play him at point guard. And kind of develop those skill sets. And I think it was a great thing to do then. And I think it was a really good idea. But I think with rookies, you want to get their feet wet a little bit first, let them understand kind of what's going on league wide and adjust to the speed of the game. And then put more on their shoulders. Don't just immediately heave a brand new position onto somebody's shoulders and be like, oh yeah, figure this out on the fly for a team that we're expecting to contend, by the way, that doesn't make roster sense because we have 4 centers and 2 4-men and Klay Thompson, who can't really move anymore, unfortunately. Like, just figure it out. It'll be great.
Here's my thing. Who is actually discounting what he's done so far? I haven't seen much of that. I've seen Kon Knueppel's the rookie of the year so far, which I think the 1 month rookie of the year. I do think, Kon Knueppel is the 1 month rookie of the year, but Cooper still should be the favorite for rookie of the year until it reaches a point where maybe Kon or VJ or Cedric Howard actually does surpass him in the April vote. But I mean, I think that's not discounting Cooper necessarily. I think if anything, again, like from what I've seen is people saying this situation is disaster. It's negatively impacting Cooper Flagg, but I haven't seen much discounting, even in the context of the article that I wrote. I think the people who are like, I'd take AG Dybantsa or Darren Peterson over him, it's because they like the offensive engine in Peterson. They prefer the skill set of Dybantsa, or somebody might prefer the big in Boozer. It's like, I think, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The point is these are all great prospects, and they're all going to be NBA players. It's just a matter of personal preference. And I think that's also true for the guys in the 26 class. I mean, I think you're going to have arguments where you talk to some people who are like, how is Boozer not number one? How are we talking about moving Boozer down? How is Dybantsa not number one? How is Peterson not number one? Oh, I like Caleb Wilson. You're going to get that guy. It's going to happen. And so I think it's really that type of year. And Flagg was originally part of it, which is sort of the craziest thing. Sam, like, what if Flagg never reclassified? It's crazy.
Well, that's what makes it so interesting to have the conversation, if only because Cooper, I think, is, if he's not younger than Darren Peterson, it's very close. I think he's within 5 or 6 months of Cam Boozer's age. And then AJ, I believe, is also very close. I think it's like within a month or two of how old AJ Dybantsa is. Cooper. So yeah, 100%. Like, these guys are all, right around the same age and are all going to be contending in the NBA for a long time together at the end of the day. And that's what I think makes this such a fun discussion point with Cooper. It's not like, we're placing Cedric Howard into this conversation, much as I love Cedric and I know that you love Cedric as well. Like, we're not tossing a 22-year-old into this conversation around 18 and 19-year-olds. And we're doing so with a guy that is the same age as these guys, decided to reclassify up, decided to move up into a different age group and play up in age. Not to say that some of these other guys haven't always done that. AJ reclassified as well into the class that he's in currently. But I do find some of the consternation, questioning Cooper that I see probably more from fans. I think NBA people, I will get the occasional thing from NBA people where they're like, oh, are we sure he's a number one? Like, are we sure that he creates shots like a number one? Are we sure that he's able to flexibly get into tight areas of the court and create shots at the rim outside of transition opportunities in the way that a number one does? But, that was their pre-draft as well, even with Cooper. And that's going to be their pre-draft with AJ, with his passing and with how the defense has looked so far. We're going to talk about it with Cam Boozer, certainly. And then we'll talk about it with certainly Darren Peterson as well, in terms of, can he be efficient as more of a jump shooting player as well? So everyone gets questioned. Everyone gets these different ideals about themselves.
One more question about the Sam. Where would you have Cooper Flagg ranked among the 2026 prospects?
I mean, do I need to do it now is my question. Like, yeah, like I think right
it's
now,
unfair because we know what Cooper did and we're in November.
That's kind of it.
Guys. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if any of these guys are going to bring the across the board production, efficiency, defense that Cooper did in college, right? I think that AJ will probably not bring the passing and defense. I think that Cam will be interesting statistically. We'll see how the finishing continues to improve against real high major competition. He might, bring in interesting statistical approximation, but he's just kind of a totally different player. Darren is out with the hamstring injury right now. We'll see if that impacts his season, but I would have Cooper in a group certainly at the top with those four, and I don't. There is a chance I would have him at one. Honestly, I think I would probably have him at two right now. If you made me put a number on it, I would probably have Darren ahead of him, but it's close. It's a very, very close conversation between the four of them to me.
I feel exactly the same as you. 2 or 3 is probably where I'd have Cooper right now. And let's move on to lottery lessons, because I saw Cam Boozer with Duke face Kansas at Madison Square Garden on Tuesday night in New York City. I was hoping, Sam, we'd get to see Darren Peterson against Cam Boozer, but unfortunately Peterson out with a hamstring issue. But Cam Boozer did play in that game. And, if you didn't watch the game, 18 points, 11 boards, 5 assists, some inefficiency again from him. 7 of 17 has become a topic among the draft community. How so far this season, he's only 11 of 25 at the rim in the half court, only 2 dunks. I talked a little bit about this with James Barlow last week as well, and he brought that up early in the year, and it's continued to be a thing. Are you concerned about this at all, or do you just view this as a early season blip for college freshmen adjusting to another level of play?
So yeah, I kind of have a theory on this, and this show is going up on Thursday. I've written this for Thursday at The Athletic. And my working theory on this is that Cam Boozer was basically the size that he is now when he was in like 9th, 10th grade, right? Like he was maybe not quite as strong and maybe not quite as like 240 to 250 pounds, but like big dude. And I think that because of that, he never has really faced much resistance at the rim in high school and in AAU settings. He was always just so coordinated and had so much touch and was clearly so much stronger than everybody else that he was just able to get where he wanted at the basket and was able to finish through guys, and it wasn't really an issue. So instead of having to work on his gathers and his ability to separate going toward the rim, I think that what he ended up deciding to work on was the perimeter game, the ability to shoot, continuing to understand where his passing reads are, the ball handling ability that we love. I'm not sitting here saying this was a bad thing or a wrong decision. I just think it was a decision that was made at the end of the day that was, hey, I'm going to improve and become a perimeter player that can be inside and outside when necessary. But because of that, I wonder if some of the footwork and the gathers and things like that we see from him, where it's just all power going to the basket. Like we haven't really seen him separate from anybody on his drives yet. Like AJ has some interesting, more polished footwork to be able on his drives with Euro steps, with different little pivots around the basket to be able to get a little bit of separation, a little bit of space to extend and finish at the rim. I feel like Cam is just often trying to blow through guys and power through guys, and it's creating situations where the shots at the rim are very difficult. So that's kind of my theory. I mean, what do you think of that theory is what I would ask you.
I think it makes perfect sense. It does, because he's always been this size. I mean, like you said, he's always been big. He's probably obviously stronger now than he was when he was a freshman, sophomore, but he has improved in those other areas. And maybe this is an area that, to your point, he didn't dedicate that time to and didn't get that in-game experience in order for these things to naturally develop, considering he was just always so much bigger. It's kind of like how sometimes, with guards who are 6'4", 6'5", that were able to just use power at a certain level and their athleticism so far exceeded other players, it becomes harder to then adapt to the NBA when they're facing a 6'8" wing with a 7'1" wingspan defending them on the perimeter in the NBA. What they had done at a lower level suddenly becomes a lot harder to do. And so I think with Boozer, there are also some instances where it's like, why didn't he just dunk that? Like, I think he has that in him where like he's just not going up for the dunk. And why is that a mindset thing? Is that like the DeAndre Ayton, I don't like to dunk type of thing? I don't know what that is, but I do think
I don't think it's that.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either for what it's worth. But I do think with Boozer, considering the ways in which he's improved other categories of his game, you at least have to feel some level of confidence, right, Sam? That he will figure this out by the end of the season, and definitely at some point into the future in the NBA. I would expect that to be figured out. I don't think he's always going to be a bad at-rim finisher. I'd be blown away, so shocked if that were the case.
That's exactly how I feel about it. Like, I think it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when. And, he's not, you talk to anybody around the league, anybody that's done the intel into Cam Boozer, they'll tell you, like, he's absolutely a worker. You have no worries about whether or not he's going to get better or continue to improve his game. It's just that I think that he needs to focus on this part of his game. And maybe it does continue throughout the year. Maybe he is unable to fix this because they're in the middle of a season and he's also in school and there are other things going on for him, right? Maybe he does need a summer to be able to work through this, but I think he will work through it. I'm not that concerned about it long term. And the other piece of it with Boozer is that, you look at all the statistical production and everything, the way he impacts the game across multiple pieces of the box score, the process for him is completely sound. Like, you look at the way that Kansas felt like it had to dedicate just mountains of pressure to him. Like, there was an inbounds pass last night where, whoever it was on the wing guarding, I forget who it was. It might have been like Isaiah Evans or something, completely blew like a switch where Trey White called out a switch. But the end result was like literally 3 guys went to Cam Boozer in the lane and it led to a wide open 3 because everyone's just so worried about this guy getting the ball at the end of the day. And then it felt like they were doubling him every time he touched the ball inside of 12 to 15 feet or so, because they were so worried about the damage that he could do on the interior, even though he has struggled as an interior finisher this year. So I love the process for Boozer, the way that he reads the court when he does get doubled, the way that he makes quick decisions. He plays fast. He has a very quick brain in the way that, some of the really high level players do. Like, the name that has always stuck out with me with him, I've always kind of felt like, and people might take this as a slight, and I don't mean it this way, he plays a lot like Kevin Love did when Kevin Love was at UCLA and was like, a little bit heavier than what Kevin Love is now, right? Kevin Love is probably going to be a Hall of Famer. So, like, when I say that, I don't say that lightly. It's just that I think that that's always the name that has stuck out most with me with Boozer, except I think Boozer is even further ahead in terms of his perimeter game and his shooting ability and his ball handling ability than what Kevin was when Kevin was at UCLA and through his first couple of years in the NBA, which I think gives Cam even greater upside than a guy that I think probably ends up in the Hall of Fame. So I don't say that lightly, but I think that people might hear the name Kevin Love and they go, oh, that'd be a disappointment if he ends up as Kevin Love. I don't think it would be. And I think he has like a little bit more juice than that, even just because of the how developed his game is to this point as an 18-year-old already.
I mean, it is funny having those conversations because it's Kevin Love you hear a lot. It's Al Horford as well. Both those guys are going to be Hall of Famers. And yet, so sometimes you say those names and it feels like, that's it? That's all? That's all he's going to be? And I think with Boozer, Sam, the dude's going to be a winning player. I mean, as you said earlier, the process of how he's approaching this game early on, he looks more like an upperclassman with the process of everything. And with Boozer, I have no doubts about his ability to be a good player in the NBA. I do think there is a little bit of that. I'm sure you're hearing this too. Is Caleb Wilson actually better? Like, are you hearing that too from some people out there in the NBA already?
Started to get it last night more than anything because Caleb played well against
transition and doing more off the dribble and all that. It's enticing what Caleb Wilson's doing.
Yeah, and we have a common opponent, obviously, now with Kansas. So, we saw what Caleb did to Kansas. We saw what Cam did with Kansas. I don't know. I want to see more of them before I make some sort of declaration. My immediate reaction is I would rather have Cam, but that's almost more of a stylistic assessment on my part in terms of what I prefer from players. I really like guys that process the game at a super high level. I like the skill level of really being able to shoot the basketball. And I think that Cam, this is the part where I think Cam gets underrated. I actually think he's a really underrated defender. He's a really smart team defender. He rotates across the play constantly. His communication on the back end of that Duke defense is absolutely outstanding. We saw that at Hoop Summit as well in practices. Like, he was very clearly the loudest player on the USA team in terms of communicating, making sure that the guys in front of him had the information that they needed. So, look, I'm still pretty firmly on the Boozer side, but undeniably, you aren't wrong that those messages did come through last night to me. And I will be interested to see how this conversation kind of matures throughout the year as we get more information on the two of them.
Yeah, I think with Caleb Wilson, he had the turnaround jumpers early in the year and the full court handle. Granted, it's against Navy, but the full court, the kind of Euro and it's like Giannis like, where it's like, oh wow, this is crazy. He has this in him, and he's doing more of it. The high low passing to Vsar. He's not a Boozer level facilitator, to your point, but he's solid. And I just look forward to seeing how this develops, because I do think of those guys behind the consensus top three, Caleb Wilson is the one so far who's most crashing that party, and certainly has a chance to surpass Boozer. And again, like it's also going to depend on who wins the lottery in May. Like, it's going to depend on what teams are valuing and what they're looking for with what order these guys might end up going. But Caleb Wilson, super impressive start to this season for sure. On Saturday, I was at TD Garden in Boston for the BYU UConn game, and that was such a strange AJ Dybantsa game, Sam. In the first half, it was all the reasons you're concerned about AJ Dybantsa, and then in the second half, it's all the reasons why you love AJ Dybantsa. He had 4 points on 1 of 6 field goals, had a hard time creating space off the dribble, turning the corner in the first half, and then in the second half, 21 points on 7 of 8, 2 of 2 from 3, looked like a star scorer, incredible half. What's your assessment of that AJ game we saw against UConn?
Yeah, so 2 things happen, really 3 things, I guess we could say. So first and foremost, I think the team that I like most watching scouts play against, the team I most like watching players play against is Connecticut, because I know for a fact that Connecticut team is incredible from a pregame scout perspective. They're going to make your life miserable. They're going to try and take away what you do well to a greater extent, I think, than anybody else in the country. Number 2, I thought that what happened in the first half was that AJ didn't really figure out where the help was coming from. Connecticut was consistently helping off of Rob Wright in that game with Silas DeMary, and DeMary would come in and kind of dig on the handle. They had multiple other guys as well that would get helped off of on Dybantsa's drives. And I think AJ didn't really figure that out. He had 3 pretty rough turnovers in the first half as well. And it felt like a worst case scenario of what some of the concerns are for what AJ's problems could be in the NBA, because he does have a fairly loose handle still on the perimeter. If you blitz the ball against him, he can really have to retreat and get loose with the ball. And on top of it, he is still a questionable shooter on some level. I think he's really comfortable getting into that 16 feet and in range, but from the perimeter, teams are still feeling like they can kind of let him shoot at the end of the day. But what I think ended up happening in the second half was twofold. First, I think BYU got a lot more intentional about the way that they spaced around AJ. They made sure that their shooters were always next to him. They always tried to get him into an empty side action if they could. And then they made sure that the closest guy to him in an empty was a shooter, be it the Tyler Maroose kid who was at Idaho last year, or be it Richie Saunders or Dawson Baker. One of the shooters was always on that same side of AJ in order to facilitate difficulty doubling if you were Connecticut. But more than that, I think AJ also figured out where the help was coming from as well in moments where BYU was not able to be as intentional, because basketball is such a fluid game, right? So I think that was the part of it that was most impressive to me was AJ. I think his problem solving on the fly in games has gotten a little bit underrated this year. You watch him against Villanova. He had a terrific close to that game as well. He was great closing against Connecticut, obviously, as you mentioned, with the 21 points in the second half. I think he's done a really, really good job of problem solving defenses throughout the course of the game and figuring out exactly where the help is coming from and where teams have to or where teams are sending help from and adjusting off of that and making plays based off of that.
I think that's a perfect assessment there, Sam. And I felt like, in the arena at that game, I'm like, too bad. We're going to see the worst of AJ in his homecoming in Massachusetts playing, in the Celtics arena, got the logo at center court, grew up in Brockton, Massachusetts. And, then he gave BYU a chance in that second half and ended up being kind of a moment for him. And on social, I posted the highlights and I said, AJ Dybantsa looks like Tracy McGrady. I know you didn't like that. I'm curious, do you have a comparison for AJ Dybantsa?
Oh, my complaint wasn't about you saying he looks like Tracy. I don't think he really looks like Tracy, but that wasn't my complaint. My complaint was I wasn't even talking about you when I said that. I was talking about what the person said about like draft coverage in general. Where they were talking about like Klosterman said something on Simmons' show about just draft coverage being so much about where you have a guy and you get locked in on the guy as opposed to just doing the work and like evaluating these kids and everything. That I think is more what frustrates me a lot of the time in regard to draft coverage, because I'm just about like the scouting and doing the work. I don't mind thinking he looks like AJ. The piece of it that's different for me is that he's just a lot more powerful at that age than AJ was, or than Tracy was. Like Tracy was quite skinny and wasn't really able to power through guys in the way that AJ does. Obviously very explosive. Nobody would deny that. But I think that AJ is even a little bit further ahead of where Tracy was at that age, at least, in regard to being able to just power through guys at the rim. To be honest with you, like I don't have a great name for him right now. That's why I'm like, when you say, you didn't
hard
like
to find
that,
one.
It doesn't really bother me that you said that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree, but
for what it's worth, I think for me, it's like T-Mac was so comfortable with the left. Like he was basically ambidextrous.
Yeah.
And like AJ goes left a lot. And there's the playmaking willingness with size. There's the fluidity and comfort with the back to the basket. And it's like, okay, that's, there's shades of T-Mac. It's not like a perfect one-to-one. I think the people who responded saying
totally.
like RJ Barrett, that's too extreme. I think AJ's far more fluid, but also I get what you're saying, RJ Barrett at a younger level, but I don't think there is a perfect comp for AJ. He's a funky prospect. There's no perfect one.
Yeah, like I agree with you. He's way better than RJ. The difference between him and RJ is I think he is better at playing with like flexibility and bend and being able to get lower than his opponent.
That
and
spin
then like
move,
is just
reach
way
layup
more,
AJ had, like that's a good one.
He's way bigger and he's way more explosive than what RJ was. Again, I don't have a great name for AJ. Like I might have to go back into history and see if there's somebody that like really tracks for AJ. I don't have it right now. He's kind of his own guy, and like I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me because the archetype of player is that he's just an advantage creator. He's a guy that if you get him open space, and I think what's so impressive about AJ and why you can see this really working in the NBA at an incredibly high level is the way that the floor is spaced in the NBA, because the shooting around him will be so much better and you have to guard him, or you have to guard his teammates so much more consistently even than you do his BYU teammates. It's going to open up even greater driving lanes for him as long as he finds the right situation. So that's what's most impressive to me. But yeah, look, like I'm actually not going to hate on the Tracy McGrady comp. Like I don't know that I agree with it, but I don't have one. So I can't make fun of it if I don't have one. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's hard to find one for him. It's more like a shades of when you assess AJ Dybantsa. Let's move on to our weekly movers. Who are you moving up, Sam, after the first 2 weeks of the college basketball season?
Yeah, so Kingston Flemings at Houston is definitely the name that I'm just going to be honest. Like I hadn't seen a lot of him coming into the year. You and I both have incredibly busy jobs where we're trying to keep track of everybody as much as possible. And I'm watching as much high school stuff as I can. I'd seen maybe like 1 or 2 games of Flemings in high school, like coming into his year at Houston, and just didn't feel great about putting him on a mock draft. I'd heard from a couple of scouts that had been down to Houston, like, hey, he looks like he's going to be a guy this year. It looks like he could be really, really good. But I would say that he is impressed even beyond what I expected. The explosiveness is obviously very real. That popped off the film in high school for sure. But it's the polish and the craft, I think, that we see, the ability to just stop on a dime, get to a mid-range jumper like it's absolutely nothing. Like there's a possession in that Auburn game where he has Elijah Freeman, who's like 6'7", 6'8". A interesting NBA prospect in his own right because he's a pretty good defender, has potential to shoot it at some point, athletic, and he just absolutely blows by Elijah Freeman. Freeman has to like chase and slide all the way back to be able to even have a chance to get back in front of him in recovery. And Fleming said stop on a dime at the elbow, and Freeman goes like 6 feet to his right, like trying to slow down, and Fleming just gets a wide open jumper at the elbow. I mean, like that stuff is super impressive. I don't know that we've seen like crazy vision from Flemings yet. I really like the way that he has, shared running the offense with Milos Uzan there. I think that Uzan does a lot of the organizational work where you'll see him pointing and getting the team into sets, and then they let Flemings be the guy who's creating and kind of getting advantages and getting paint touches because he's so fast, right? I really like the way that offense is operating. And look, Kelvin Sampson puts a lot on your shoulders, and if you can't do it early on, he won't play you, is the reality. Like he will not like go through it. He will let you learn in practice and will let you figure it out. So the fact that this guy is the point guard at Houston, along with Uzan, partially running the show, that in and of itself says something, that Kelvin Sampson trusts him to be a high-level player. So I have been very impressed with Flemings. He has to get way better on defense. The defense was a real issue in the Auburn game, I thought. He and Chris Senak had some really bad miscommunications in that game, but I really have been impressed with Flemings, and I will tell you the scouting community has also been very, very impressed with Kingston Flemings.
I mean, so far this season, averaging 17 points per game, 5 assists, 3.5 boards, 6'4", shooting 40% from 3. In that game against Auburn, it was also, juxtaposed against Tahad Pettiford, who was in the draft conversation last year, ends up going back to school. Pettiford off to a very slow start in his sophomore year for Auburn. Flemings looked like the better prospects in that game. At least you mentioned in passing there, Sinak for Houston, a potential lottery pick if he stays in the draft. I'd say Houston, Tennessee, going to be the game to watch this week. If people are picking one game to watch, that's going to be the game, right, Sam?
Oh, 100%. Like that is by far the most interesting game of the week, if only because we get Nate Ament against that really difficult Houston defensive front line, where to me, JoJo Tugler was the best defender in college basketball last season, point blank. His ability to cover ground, his strength, his ability to kill possessions on the defensive glass.
Can you
I love
describe
that
JoJo for people who haven't watched Houston? If they missed March Madness last year.
He's listed at like 6'8" or 6'9". He might be 6'7". I don't know. He has like a 7'5", 7'6" wingspan, and this dude covers ground better than any big, quote unquote, in all of college basketball. I remember last year there was possession where he like contested and drove Mark Sears like all the way out of bounds on a switch possession and like kind of stumbled behind the basket. And then Sears had kicked it out and went like swing to the opposite wing from where Tugler was, and Tugler made a rotation that had to be, I swear to God, 35 feet in between the time that Alabama had like swung the ball twice in order to X out and get to the opposite wing to close out on the shooter and block a shot. I was like, this is the craziest thing I think I've seen somebody do on a basketball court defensively in a long time. He's a great rim protector. He is awesome rotationally within that scheme. He cannot offense right now. Let's just like baseline it. He can't offense really, but defensively, like we've seen guys like Isaiah Stewart work. Like the level to which Isaiah Stewart at Washington was ahead of where JoJo is on offense is drastic. But you look at the role Isaiah Stewart is playing right now for the Detroit Pistons, and I think that's kind of what the vision would be for JoJo Tugler.
Yeah, to Tugler so far. To your point, though, we're going to have to see a lottery pick go against a defense with a bunch of NBA caliber guys. Uzan, very good player as well for Houston.
And to the other point of that too, like don't sleep on Tennessee either. Like Rick Barnes, his defenses are always incredibly organized. Felix Okpara is a very good interior rim protector that will make life difficult for Houston when trying to score at the rim. So Kingston Flemings will have to show on some level that he's able to shoot the ball. Uzan, also a really interesting prospect that I think could go late first, early second, somewhere in that range. And I found it really interesting in the Houston Auburn game too that they closed with Isaiah Harwell, and he played a lot of late minutes in that game too, which said to me that even though he came into the season recovering from an injury, Kelvin Sampson was pretty clear about that in all of the press conferences, that they're starting to gain like a real comfort level with his two-way play as well as another 5-star prospect at Houston that has some one and done potential. So really, really excited about the Houston Tennessee game for myriad reasons.
What do you want to see from Nate Ament in this game against Houston?
Yeah, I would like to see like real toughness driving to the rim. He was never a particularly good rim finisher in high school, in my opinion. How does he adjust to the physicality that Houston will present him? I think will be a really interesting conversation. How does he create in half court settings? That is probably for a guy that was pretty consistently ranked in the top 5 in the preseason of most people's boards, on the NBA side, in public situations, everything like that. My concern has always been, how does he create shots? Like, is he more of just a knockdown shooter who attacks closeouts and ends up being like, kind of like what Andrew Wiggins has become in the NBA? Maybe, a better or worse version of that, depending on your opinion of Ament. I would guess probably worse because he's not as good of an athlete as what Wiggins was entering the NBA. But, longer body, 6'8", 6'9". Well, I think Ament's listed at like 6'10" or 6'11" even. So probably like 6'9", 6'9.5" without shoes. Really interesting player. I would just like to see where the handle is, where the half court creation ability is. I think he's unselfish. I think he's a good passer. I think he can shoot the ball. I like his defensive rotational ability. Can he create half court shots? Because ultimately that will be the key to him going in the top, whatever you want to call it, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Going to be an interesting game, Sam. Appreciate you joining me today, man. This is a lot of fun. Please let people know where they can find all your stuff.
Yeah, go to The Athletic first and foremost. Really enjoy the work I do there, and appreciate everybody over there. Go to the Game Theory podcast, Game Theory with Sam Vecenie over on YouTube, over on whatever podcasting platform you use. We appreciate everybody that comes through. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Sam. Have a good day, man.
Yeah, you too.